I'm Summer. Welcome in. We are going to go through a 60-minute Yin Yoga practice. So if you're practicing at home, some things that you might want to have, if you have them, are 2 yoga blocks, a yoga bolster. If you don't have a bolster, that's completely fine. You can use pillows, rolled up blankets, anything that's kind of nice and firm, or even if you have soft built pillows, that's totally fine as well. And if you have a blanket or a towel, that might come in handy for you as well today. So in this Yin Yoga practice, we may be using these props in each pose, we may not. And there will be options to use them if you want or if you don't want. So whatever you're feeling is totally fine. They're just here as an option, they are not required. Today here in Yin Yoga practice, we are looking to stretch and stress the connective tissues. So a little bit of a difference. A lot of people here in the West are really used to Yang Yoga or Power Yoga, where we're really stretching the muscles, strengthening the muscles. But in Yin Yoga, we're getting even deeper into the fascia and into the connective tissues of the body. We come into poses and we hold them and we work deeply. So in Yang Yoga, we move the tissues of the muscles through powerful movements, and in Yin Yoga, we're looking to target the tissues of the ligaments, the bones, and the joints, all the connective tissues of the body. Yang Yoga usually consists of fast movements and muscle contractions, where in Yin Yoga, we require gentler pressure for longer periods of time to grow stronger. A good analogy I like to use for someone who's never done Yin Yoga before is to just think of braces on your teeth. So braces mold the teeth to where they need to be over a long period of time using really gentle pressure. So that's what we're aiming to accomplish in Yin Yoga, so just think of that. Yin Yoga helps to protect the joints as we settle into our connective tissues, allowing them to stretch, because as we age, we become stiff, and Yin Yoga helps to build stability, mobility, and range of motion. It is important to stress and rest our muscles, never doing too much of either. In Yin Yoga, like I said, we're working to stress the connective tissues as opposed to stretching them. They may become longer over time, the more that Yin Yoga is practiced, but we're not trying to lengthen these muscles, we're trying to strengthen them. I'm sorry, not muscles, connective tissues. So with that said, let's just come to lie down on our backs. Your legs extended out long in front of you, arms down by your sides, heels in, toes out, body super relaxed here. And begin to allow your awareness to drift to your low belly. Noticing the rhythm of your own breath. Feeling the inhales as the belly rises. And the exhales as your belly softens back down towards your spine. Don't try to change anything. Just notice the breath as you continue to take inhales and exhales. Accepting your breath and body exactly as it is right here in this present moment. Begin to notice other feelings in your body, feeling the earth beneath you, the sky above you, temperature of the room against your skin, and all of the sounds you hear surrounding you. As you begin to broaden your awareness, notice any emotions starting to appear. Contentment, calmness, happiness, maybe even boredom or irritation. It's totally fine, whatever you're experiencing, throughout practice today. Just notice those sensations as we get into each pose. Just be with the emotions. Don't judge them, don't criticize or congratulate yourself on any of them. Just be here with whatever you're feeling today, knowing that each day and each practice is always different. Begin to bring your awareness to the third eye center and notice any thoughts that begin to come your way. Again, not judging or concentrating too hard on these thoughts, but just noticing them and then allowing them to pass on. As you move through this practice, take moments to take inventory of the body and notice how each pose makes you feel physically, emotionally, and mentally. In today's practice, we will get into each pose. We will find our edge. We will settle into stillness, and then we will hold for a length of time, about 3 minutes in each pose. So accepting the body and mind as it is, but also staying curious, knowing wherever you are is perfect, but maybe flirting with the edge from time to time, just to see what you're capable of. And with that said, let's move into our first pose by gently and slowly rolling onto our sides and gently pushing ourselves up for our first seated pose, butterfly pose. So we'll bring the soles of our feet together, knees out wide. If you like a little elevation in the hips, this is where your blanket can come into play. So let's just do that. Take your blanket and roll however many times you like and just bring your sits bones to sit right on the edge of that blanket, just helping to elevate the hips a little bit, can release some tension there. And then soles of the feet together, knees wide. If you'd like a little bit of support under your outer knees, you can bring the blocks there to whatever height feels best for you. I have mine on the low height, but maybe the medium or the tall feels better for you. So with the soles of the feet together, gently start to slide your feet away from your body. You can stay here or continue to work deeper as you invite yourself to fold forward. Lightly resting your hands on your feet on the floor in front of you. And releasing your head down towards your heels. So the blocks under our knees definitely help make things a little less intense. If you want a little more, you can release the blocks. If the neck is feeling overly stressed, you can support your head in your hands by resting your elbows on the floor in front of you and then just resting your chin on your hands like so. Just helping to support the neck. And we just find our edge, come into stillness, and we are holding here for about 2 more minutes now. So trying to come to a place where you're not fidgeting, where you can just feel the stress getting into the fascia, the connective tissues. And stress here is a good thing, not a bad thing. So the closer the feet are to the groin here, the adductor muscles will feel more stress. So if you want to alleviate that intensity, you can slide your feet a little further from the groin. If you have any knee issues, having the feet further away from the body will release some of that sensation in the knees. We're targeting the spine, the abduction in the hips as the hips roll away from the center line of the body. We're also targeting the inner thighs. Again, going to that place where we find our edge, Release into stillness and hold for time. Notice any sensations that you feel. And breathe. And then we'll slowly release out of this pose. So just use your hands to push the floor away from you and come up to seated. Before straightening out your legs, lean back into your hands to release the hips, and then slowly and mindfully straighten each leg. Place the soles of your feet on your mat. Bring your feet out wide, knees fall in towards each other. Just slowly windshield wiper the legs to release any tension being held there after that pose. And then we'll come into our next pose, half butterflies. So I'm going to turn to this side here. You can keep that blanket underneath your sits bones if that's feeling good to keep your hips a little elevated. So from the seated position coming into half butterflies, like I said, still sitting on a blanket. If you like, just bring your right leg out in front of you and a little to the right, sole of the left foot to the inner right thigh. Allowing your back to round, slowly begin to walk your hands forward to a place that feels good where you find your edge and you can settle into stillness. So guys, options here. This extended leg does not have to be straight. If it feels good to set a block or a rolled up blanket under that knee, you can feel free to do so. Again, we're trying to come to a place where we can hold this for about 3 minutes, really working into the fascia, the connective tissue. And even if you want to stay seated with a straight spine, if that's where you're at today, that's totally fine. So lots of options here. You can even bring the block to the tall setting and set your forehead on that block if that's a nice place. We find our edge and we settle into stillness and we breathe. About 2 more minutes here. Holding for time. If you're wanting to fold a little deeper into this pose, option 2, reach the left hand, grab a hold of the outer right foot. And you can use that left hand to pull yourself into this twist. Your right fingertips are outside of your right knee, tented, and you can just pull into this twist a little deeper. Probably feeling a stretch along the right hamstring. If the hamstring is super tight, please keep a generous bend in that right knee. The back will be a little rounded here. It's okay to not have a straight back. Just noticing whatever sensations arise. We don't want to feel like we're completely relaxing. There is work happening here, even as we just stay still. 20 more seconds. And then slowly start to walk your hands back and towards your body. Release the block from under your knee if you used a block. And then nice and slow switch sides. So extend the left leg towards straight, a little bit out to the left, and then slowly bring the right sole of the right foot into the inner left thigh. And just remember that each side is different. So maybe you could extend the right leg towards straight, and maybe this left knee has a little bend. Wherever you're at is totally fine. And again, maybe you're staying straight up and seated, or beginning to round the back as you walk your hands forward and fold over that extended leg. Targeting the flexion of the spine and the external rotation of the hips. So it's getting into the hamstrings here. If that knee is bent and a block is too much, try a little rolled blanket or maybe a rolled towel, something a little softer. Finding our edge, going to that place where you can hold for stillness, settle into stillness, and we hold about 2.5 more minutes. If you want support for the head and neck, again, just using that block on a tall setting, or even a bolster. You can lay your forehead on a bolster as your arms come out to the sides. That feels nice for me personally. About another minute here. Notice how the body feels. Notice what's happening, what's bubbling to the surface. It's all good. Couple more rounds of deep breathing. Then slowly begin to come to seated if you're not there already. Bring the soles of the feet to the mat, knees bent, just windshield wiper the legs, little counter pose. Before coming into our next pose, wide straddle. I'm just gonna face you again. So if you haven't experimented with sitting on your blanket, this is a really nice pose to do so. So if you have a blanket and want to experiment with sitting in it, again, just come to sit close to the edge of that blanket. And now we're going to take the legs out wide here for this wide straddle down the middle, or sometimes called dragonfly pose. So from your seated position, just widen your legs a good amount until you feel the stretch or they won't go any further. Take a deep inhale as you lengthen the spine. And then exhale, if you like, you can stay here, or exhale, start to walk the hands forward, toes pointed up towards the sky. Again, it's okay if the legs aren't completely straight, if you have a little bend in the knees and that feels better for you, please just stay there. Otherwise, going to your own degree, finding your edge. If If you want to rest your forehead on a block or to heighten the floor, sometimes I need 2 blocks. Slowly bring the forehead to rest. Find your edge. Settle into stillness. And we hold for about 3 minutes. So if you're super duper flexible and your chest can come really close to the floor, you can try resting your chest on a pillow or a bolster. And if you're really flexible, you might feel like you're not getting much of a stretch here, but just know that you are getting the benefit as we target the hips and the inner thighs. About 2 more minutes. Nice deep breaths. Coming to a place where there's no fidgeting and you're just holding for that stillness. If you're feeling any burning sensations in your knees, please bring the knees and the legs a little closer together. That can help alleviate that. Sometimes the sensation here on the knees can be therapeutic, but other times can be irritating. So you decide, just listen to what your body's telling you. If there's any low back issues, it may not feel good if you round the spine. So if you have low back or sciatica flaring up, just come up to seat, sit straight. Otherwise, you're in this pose about another 30 seconds. Going to your own degree here. If you have leaned forward, slowly begin to walk your hands back in towards your body. Bring the legs together. Bend the knees, soles of the feet on the mat, feet wide, knees together. Place your hands on the floor behind you again. Just a windshield wiper with the legs to counter that pose, release any tension. Come into our next pose, child's pose. We'll just be here for about a minute as we transition. So bring the big toes together, knees open wide. And if that doesn't feel good for you, you can have your knees still close together, your body, your choice. And then slowly begin to lower your torso towards your thighs as your hands walk forward, your forehead resting on your mat. If your forehead doesn't quite make it to the mat, you can rest your forehead on a block here. So if your inner thighs are together and you feel any uncomfortable pinching at the hips or too much compression in the chest and belly, that's just a sign that you can take the knees out wide, but keep the big toes together and breathe. If you're feeling too much tension in the shoulders with your arms outstretched, just bring your arms alongside you, forehead on the mat or one of your ears to the mat. Can feel nice. Couple more rounds of breath. Just coming to your edge, settling into stillness. And then slowly coming back to a seated. So slowly pushing the floor away from you. Nice and slow. Roll up. Moving into our next pose, Sphinx. So in Sphinx pose, we're going to come to lay on our belly, legs outstretched behind us, forearms on the mat, tops of the feet pressing into the floor, fingers spread wide. And here we are in Sphinx pose. So palms are facing down. Notice any sensations you might feel here in your low back. If the sensations are too strong, move your elbows a little further ahead, and that'll help you get your chest a little closer to the floor, and that'll release some tightness in the low back. Always option to put the forehead on a block if you want some support. Feels nice. About 2 more minutes here. Just finding your edge, settling into stillness and holding. Targeting the low back as well as the front torso. With any of these poses, if any uncomfortable sensations arise, just come out of the pose and lie flat on your belly with your head turned to one side. You can stay here in Sphinx pose. If you are wanting to get a little deeper into the low back, you can come into seal. And to get into seal pose, we keep the legs where they're at, extended behind us. Bring the hands out to the top corners of the mat and just work on extending the arms towards straight. So you walk your hands a little further towards the top of your mat, whatever works for you here, and you get that compression more into the low back. So maybe your hands are towards the top of your mat. If you want a little more sensation in the low back, you can walk your hands in a little closer to the body. So this is seal pose. So staying in Sphinx or getting into seal, whatever you're looking for today, we're gonna hold here about another 1.5 minutes. Finding your edge, finding stillness. If you've never done this practice before, just know that it is completely normal to maybe feel fidgety or a little irritated in some of these holds, because in our society it is really hard to slow down and just settle in and hold these poses. We're always go, 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 but know you're getting so many benefits from just doing this practice and holding the poses, getting into the fascia. We'll slowly release out of this pose now. So whether you're in Sphinx or seal, just slowly begin to lower your chest to the floor. Turn your head to one side. Relax the arms. And we'll press back into child's pose. So bring your hands to the mat. Press your body back, your hips back towards your heels. Again, option for inner thighs to stay together or knees out wide as the big toes come together. We're just here for about 1 minute, child's pose. Feel your forehead rest on your mat or a block, arms outstretched in front of you or down alongside you. And then slowly come up to seated. Cross your ankles behind you. Option to bring that blanket under the hips. As we set up for our next pose, half shoelaces. So begin by sitting up tall with your legs extended straight out in front of you. And then we're going to stack the left knee on top of the right. Like so. So that left knee is stacked on top of the right knee. You can stay here with the right leg extended or begin to bend the right knee, bringing your right foot under your left hip. So if you're doing that, you're in this cross-legged position with the left knee stacked on top of the right. Personally, for me, I like to keep the right leg extended straight. Feels a little better for me there. This is also sometimes called cow face pose. So from here, you can stay seated, or you can begin to walk your hands forward. You may start to feel a deep sensation in your right hamstring here. Option to always bring the blocks if you want to lower your forehead. One block may be too low, so you might want to stack 2 blocks if you want to lower your forehead to the ground in that case, or to the blocks, I'm sorry. So here we're mainly targeting the hips and the spine, a touch of tension in the hamstrings. Finding your edge, settling into stillness, and we hold a couple more minutes. Trying to keep the hips even here. There can be a tendency for the top hip to pull forward a bit, but really just try and keep them even, keep them neutral. Again, the back will be rounded here. Noticing any sensations start to arise. Just being okay with that, wherever you are in this present moment. And if you have folded over your legs, slowly begin to walk your hands into your body, coming up to a straight spine. Nice and slow movements here. Bring your left leg out to meet your right. And then we'll switch sides. So stacking the right knee on top of the left. Option to stay here, and that the right heel is going to come to the outer edge of the left hip, or close to it. If you'd like to take the option of bringing your left heel to the outer edge of your right hip here, that might feel really nice for you, and maybe this is where you are on this side. It's okay for each side to be different. Staying seated here, or beginning to walk your hands forward as you fold your chest over your right thigh. We hold for 3 minutes. So finding your edge, finding your place of your own degree where you can just Make any last movements to settle into stillness and hold. Getting into those hips and the spine. Breathing deeply. Some of us might actually find it difficult to remain in these poses for 3 whole minutes. It seems so short, but really trying to allow yourself to stay here for the entire 3 minutes before coming out of it. Knowing the more you do this practice, the more benefits you'll get, the more stability you'll bring to your body, building mental focus, sharper concentration. Overall, a better sense of well-being and health. Just bring to mind that image of the braces, just gentle, gentle pressure over time as we work into the connective tissues of the body. About another 30 seconds here. And then slowly, very slowly, releasing out of this. Maybe feeling a little yoga stoned. Extending your legs towards straight. And just give your legs a little wiggle. You can lightly tap on the tops of the thighs. Bring your soles of the feet to the mat. Hands come behind you. Feet wide, knees in close together. Again, nice and slow after that. Windshield wiper the legs. And then we'll come into happy baby. So come down to lie on your back. Hug the knees into the chest. Grab a hold of the soles of the feet with the hands. If you can't quite grab the tops of the bottoms of your feet, you can wrap your hands around your ankles or even your calves, or you can even bring your hands to your hamstrings. So wherever you're at, just coming into that, finding your edge. What you want to feel here is a little bit into the inner thighs. Feeling this all sorts of places actually, but we get into the inner thighs here. Maybe trying to lengthen your tailbone towards the back of your mat. So really pressing your tailbone, your low back into your mat here as the tops of your thighs, tops of your knees draw down towards your mat. About another 2.5 minutes. So we are also strengthening the biceps in this pose. No matter where your hands are grabbing a hold of, you can use the strength of your biceps to pull down on your feet or your legs. Getting those knees, tops of the thighs a little closer to the mat each time. into stillness now, trying to release the fidgets. Definitely targeting the connective tissues of the spine, the inner thighs, the tops of the thighs, the outer hips. And like I said, even getting into the biceps, the shoulders a little bit. Notice your shoulders are staying flat on your mat. About another minute here. Notice that you're breathing. The jaw is soft. Maybe find a space between the top row of teeth and the bottom row of teeth. The eyebrows are soft, cheekbones soft. And then we'll slowly begin to release out of this pose. So just nice and slow, hug your knees into your chest. Rock side to side. Gently roll to one side. Nice and slow here, you guys. And then press yourself to sit up. I like to do a little, for a counter pose here, take your hands behind you, fingers pointing forward, soles of the feet on the mat, knees bent, and let's just press up with the hips. Oh, that feels good. Stay here for another breath or two. And slowly release your sit bones back to the mat. And we'll come into our next pose, reclining twists. So in reclining twist, come again to lie down on your back, draw both knees into your chest, open your arms out to the sides like wings. So knees drawn to chest, arms out to the side. Slowly begin to draw your knees over to the right. So there's lots of different things we can do here. If you want to keep your inner thighs and your knees together, you're drawing your knees over to the right. If they don't quite touch the floor, you can bring a block or a bolster or a pillow underneath that outer right thigh. So that is an option. That doesn't quite feel right. Try extending your right leg towards straight and then drawing your left knee over to the right. So just releasing any low tension or any tension of the low back here, getting rid of any stubbornness there. Maybe you're gazing up towards the ceiling, or you can take your gaze out over the left shoulder. So finding your edge, and then finding a place where you can settle into stillness. And we hold. This is a pose for me personally that I start to get a little irritated in. I really feel it on my outer left hip. I really love this pose in traditional yoga classes, but to actually hold it for 3 minutes to me is quite difficult. So if you're feeling the same thing, you are not alone. We're targeting the rotation along the spine and the torso, and maybe feeling some tension on the outer hip, the outer legs, the shoulders. About another minute and a half. And please don't feel like you have to keep your knees and feet hovering in the air here. I have my outer right knee on a block, and then my feet are resting on the mat. 30 seconds or so. And then slowly, nice and slow, coming out of this, releasing. So keeping your arms out wide, bring the soles of your feet to the mat. Knees pointed towards the ceiling. And then we'll just begin to drift our knees to the other side, so over to the left. So you can take all the options we talked about on the first side. Another thing that feels nice is if you want to stack your left ankle on top of your outer right thigh. That can pull you in a little deeper to the stretch here, gazing over the right shoulder. Remember, you always can use your blocks, your bolsters. So we target the low spine, maybe feeling a stretch along the outer right hip here. Finding your edge, settling into that stillness once you've worked out all the kinks and the fidgets. And then we hold. If you want to play with the sensations of your neck and your head, maybe it feels good to just look up straight, or maybe it feels better to gaze over the right shoulder. Totally up to you. Your body, your practice. Notice that your breath is even. Just allow yourself to sink into the space that you've created. Try to keep the right shoulder flat on the floor here. Couple more rounds of deep breaths. And then we'll slowly release, come out of this nice and slow. Bring the soles of your feet to the mat. Hug the knees into the chest. Nice and slow movements. And rock side to side. And then extend the legs towards straight, arms down by your sides, palms facing up. Shavasana, our final pose here. It's our final pose of rest and relaxation. Really give yourself permission to stay here for 3 whole minutes, just like all the other poses. Feel your body sink into your mat. And with each exhale, just ease into this pose, soften into this pose even more. Even in Shavasana, we have an edge, so go to that place and then find the spot where you can release into stillness, and we hold. This is our chance in Shavasana to ultimately surrender. In time for the body to restore all of the work we just put it through. In this quiet time, the mind should remain alert yet relaxed. Just be aware of your entire body relaxing, paying attention to the energies you feel flowing through the body. Deep inhale, followed by a long, thorough exhale. As we practice watching the energies flow here in Shavasana, in time we can become more aware of the energy flowing in our other poses. Relaxing completely and becoming still. Release the bones and just let go completely. Close your eyes and relax. Come back to the pace of your own deep breathing. Begin to return to life by bringing some movement into your fingers, into your toes. Just begin to wiggle the toes and fingers, circle your ankles, circle your wrists. Stretch the entire body out long, making yourself as long as possible. And then come back to a natural lying down position. Gently roll over to one side, nice and slow. Take your time. Press yourself up with your hands, keeping your eyes closed, coming to a cross-legged seated position. Notice the sensations of your body and how you feel now as opposed to the beginning of class. No judgments, just observations. Take a deep inhale through the nose. Feel the belly rise, push out. And exhale, sigh the breath out through the mouth. One more time, all together. Inhale deeply through the nose. Feel the breath travel down the back of the throat, all the way down to the bottoms of the lungs as the rib cage expands. Exhale, sigh it out. Bring your hands to your heart in prayer. Take a moment to thank yourself for making it to your mat today, knowing that just showing up is always the most important part. Bow your forehead to meet your fingertips. May there be peace in your heart, in our homes, and in our world. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. That was the Yin Yoga practice. We'll see you next time.